Hi, I'm Jeff Gamet for the Mac Observer, and this is HP's Envy34C display. You can also find it as the Z34C display. It's 34 inches diagonal, and it's actually curved as well, which is pretty cool. It has 3440 by 1440 resolution at 60 hertz and a 21:9 aspect ratio. That's pretty impressive display. I mean, this is big. Like, how big? I was trying to find things to relate it to. So I started with a Lego minifigure who just got out of the hospital. That doesn't quite show it. Here's a Starbucks cup for comparison, which kind of gives you a good idea too. Or something we all have in our pockets all the time. How about an iPhone 6S for comparison? So yeah, that's a really big display. I've been testing this display for a few months, and what I found is that it's actually really nice for graphic designers as long as you know where the limitations are. It's really good for gamers as long as you have a video card that can really drive a display this big. And it's perfectly fine for photo editing, video editing, and I've even been doing a lot of audio editing on this display as well. And having this much real estate to work with when you're editing files that have like linear elements like video or audio, it's really nice to have that much screen space. Now let's take a look at the back, and I'll show you what you can hook up to this display. On the back, our ports are nicely lined up, easy to get to. We have power, USB 3 out, dual USB 3 in, 2 HDMI, and a display port. Now it includes the USB 3 out cable, an HDMI cable, and a DisplayPort cable. What it doesn't include is DisplayPort to mini DisplayPort cable, so you're going to have to buy that extra if you're a Mac user. Now right in the middle is a VESA mount, and you can see I have this mounted on an arm. You need a substantial arm to hold this, so I'm using Humanscale's M-Connect arm, which is a pretty beefy setup. It can hold a large display. It's having no trouble at all with this 34-inch display. The display includes this bracket here, and it only takes about a minute to install, which is really nice. And you just put that in instead of the regular base that would fit underneath. That regular base is a pretty substantial metal piece, and it holds the display really stable. But I think this display really shines when you put it on a VESA mount because you have a lot more control over positioning. Now let's talk about the HP Envy34C's overall image quality. This is an 8-bit color display. That means 16.7 million colors. It has a 98.8% sRGB color gamut. It has a 3001 contrast ratio and 110 pixels per inch, all on an anti-glare display. Thank you, HP, for getting that. Designers don't need glare glossy displays. We need anti-glare displays to do what we need to do. Okay, now that 110 pixels per inch, when you take into account the distance that most people will be from the display when they're working, equates to retina quality. Now that means that at a specific distance you can no longer distinguish the individual pixels in a display. And considering you're going to be like 18, 24 inches, somewhere right in here when you're looking at this display, you're going to be hard-pressed to distinguish individual pixels. Now, the caveat is if you're working with text and you want that text to look as if it is retina quality as well, you need to go into the display settings and choose the optimize for text as opposed to optimize for gaming or optimize for movie options. Your text will look a lot better when you do that. And once I did that, I really felt like I was looking at a retina display, a 34-inch wide retina display. All right, now a couple other things about this display. It has built-in speakers on the sides, and they're okay. That's just it. They're just okay. They're fine for system sounds. They're fine for when you're watching, say, a YouTube video where you're really not that concerned about the audio quality. They're okay for listening to some music, but if you really, really care about the quality of the sound for whatever it is that you're listening to, you're really not going to use these speakers. You'll end up using whatever it is you already have. And in my case, yes, I'm spoiled when it comes to audio quality because I'm using Audio Engine A5 speakers, and I'm using one of Audio Engine's digital to audio converters to enhance that audio even more. So there's really no way that these speakers can compare to the audio quality that I already have. Now, that said, with those HDMI ports that are on the back of this display, you can hook up, say, a Blu-ray player or an Apple TV or another computer, and then you can switch between all these devices on the fly. So in that sense, you can actually use this display as a multimedia display for all of your different devices. That's really cool, and if you have a small space where even putting up extra speakers is going to be a problem for you, okay, you have speakers built in, and that's kind of cool. What you don't have is a camera, and that was an intentional choice on HP's part because they felt that the people buying this display, for the most part, actually wouldn't want a camera. And I'm okay with that because a camera that they put in would probably not be as good as the one that I chose for my needs, which is this, the Logitech C920 camera. And it's about a $70 camera, and the image quality is fantastic, and I can just set it right up there on top of my display and it works great. I'm using that for video conferencing, and when I'm doing live video shows like The Big Show, that's the camera that I use, and it's HD quality and it's great. So I wasn't really concerned that this didn't have a camera built in. I had something better to use anyhow. Okay, now we're looking at a giant display, and I haven't shown you yet how big things can be on here. So this is a sample GarageBand file filling up the whole display. If you're doing serious audio editing, this is a lot of space to work with, and that's really great. If you're, say, a Photoshop editor, this is awesome. I'm looking at a panorama image that I took from my iPhone, and I have the image at 66% right now, and it is just about this much too big on either side to fit on this display. Now, I've never had a display where I can take a panorama image and look at almost the entire thing at a reasonable size. So this is really nice. I oftentimes work on large images where I can see the entire thing, and in many cases blow them up and still see the entire thing, whereas before that just wasn't an option for me. So that's really cool. Now, I've told you how cool this display is, how awesome it is that it's curved, how nice the color is, how easy it is to get to the ports. It has a VESA mount and built-in speakers. I've told you all these great things about the display. Now, where does it fall down? Well, the biggest failure for this display is that it comes with this remote, and this is how HP expects you to control the settings on the display, turn the speakers on and off, and it has a power button so you can put the display in sleep mode. That's great, but really, that is crap. It is a horrible remote. It is difficult to use. It's almost impossible to see the individual buttons, and they're just black on black. The icons that they're using to identify what each button is essentially worthless. My recommendation is, once you've got the display set up, if you need to make any changes, don't even bother with the remote. On the side over here, there are buttons. Just press the buttons, and that'll bring up all the menu options. It's a little clunky to work through the menus, but at least you're not having to do it with the remote. The remote is really bad. I was also a little disappointed in the color on this display, but only a little bit, because overall I'm really, really pleased with the color that I got off of this display. Where it let me down was when I got to very, very light grays. So if I was looking at a gray that was, say, less than 5%, there was a chance that I wasn't going to see it on this display if I was looking at that gray against a white. My color reference for this was Apple's really old 23-inch cinema display. That's the one that had the aluminum bezel all the way around. That display was showing those grays no problem. This one didn't. So that's something to be aware of when you're working with color. If those grays really matter, you're going to have to watch closely to make sure you're not missing something that you really wanted to see. So here's the bottom line. I think the HP NV34C is a really nice choice if you're a graphic designer working with photos or page layout. I think it's a really nice choice for someone that needs to do video editing or audio editing. I think it works well for gaming, and it handles video playback really well too. So this is a display that can appeal to a lot of different people. It has a lot of screen space to work with. The curve is nice and it makes the display feel better, but it doesn't actually do anything to improve images or change the focal length for your eyes, so you're focusing differently. It's just a nice addition to the display. The price point is really good too. This is only $778 on Amazon, and despite the fact that I have a little nitpick with gray colors on this display, but only the really light grays, I think the color's fantastic, and I'm really pleased with the display overall. It's something that I recommend for pretty much anyone. I'm Jeff Gamet for the Mac Observer. Thanks for watching.